Hi, my name is Amy. I'm with the Genealogy and Local History Department of the Kokomo-Howard County Public Library. And today I'm going to do a video here on genealogy charts and forms. This is going to be a quick instruction on how to fill out some of the more basic charts and forms that you'll run into when you're doing genealogy. And you should have your packet with you. In that packet are several forms and a very handy little bookmark magnifying glass. And most important of all, there's a pencil. So make sure you keep that pencil handy. It has a nice eraser on it. So let's get started. You're familiar with a family tree. There's a nice little graphic of that. And these are the forms we're going to discuss today. You have 2 copies of an ancestry chart. It's also called a pedigree chart. It's also called a family tree chart. The terms are all pretty interchangeable. You should have 2 copies of a family group sheet. You should have a copy of a timeline, a research log, and some checklists of genealogical resources. First thing I want to tell you is that there are some standards for making everybody's charts and trees look alike. It makes it easier to determine what is meant by names and dates if everybody uses the same format. So with names, we capitalize in all caps the last name. So Mary Lee and then Jones in caps. This next example is James Henry Charles. Those are 3 first names. So putting that on a chart without absolutely capitalizing that last name could cause confusion as to which of those names is the actual surname. Dates are written in the format of day, month, and 4-digit year. You can abbreviate the months, don't abbreviate the year. We have 1798, 1898, 1998. If you just put 98, you could be that you won't know which full year that is. For locations, we start with the smallest entity and move up. So we have Kokomo, then Howard County, and then Indiana. In the case of Marion, we have a Marion as a town and a Marion as a county. So by putting Marion, Grant County, Indiana, we know that that's the town of Marion. Whereas if we use Indianapolis, Marion County, we realize it is the county. And once again, use a pencil with a good eraser. So let's get to looking at some of these charts. Here's an ancestry chart or a family chart, pedigree chart, whatever you choose to name it. This is the one that's in your packet. I will be using one that looks slightly different, but I was able to type on it. So you'll start with number 1 as you. And number 1 is right here on the left side of the chart. This is where you always start. And here's, again, first, middle name, or in regular case, the last name is all caps. If it's a woman you're talking about, anywhere through the chart, you always use her maiden name. The birth date is in the day, month, 4-digit order, and the birthplace is from the smallest, Niagara Falls, to Niagara County to New York. And that's from the smallest to the largest. If you have a foreign country, you should put that in there also. There's a room on this sheet to add the spouse's name. You'll have a spot on your sheet also for that, but you're not tracing the spouse's family, you're tracing your own in this particular case. Next, number 2. Go up the chart to the number 2. This is your father. Capitals, all caps. Then we filled in the birth, the place of birth, the marriage date, the place of the marriage, death date, and the place of death. I don't think your chart has the one on the place of marriage, but you can certainly slip that in. So there's number 2. Come down to number 3, and this is your mother. You see that this is her maiden name. In this case, she doesn't need to have a marriage date there because it's understood to be connected with number 2. Moving on, you is 1, your father is 2, number 4 is your grandfather. and number 5 is your grandmother. So you're going to be doing your father's line up through this upper portion of the chart. Come down here, number 3 again is your mother, number 6 is her father, and number 7 is her mother. So the female line is down on this end of the chart. At some point, you're going to get all the way to the end. You've got a 5-generation chart here, and when you get to number 30, in this case, Richard Augustus Clark, now you're out of space. So what do you do next? You see these numbers here, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. The person you're moving forward to the next chart becomes, this person will become number 1 on the following chart, but there's a numbering system here to think about. So number 30, Richard Clark, comes number 1 on chart 16. And I have a little graphic here. This is the numbering system for the pedigree chart. So when you're over to the right side, number 16 is the top person on that line, and they go down, you can see that they go down by numbers. So number 16 on your first chart is number 1 on chart 2. The next person would be number 17 on this chart, becomes number 1 on chart 3. You have to follow this sequence. It does work, and it keeps everybody in line. That's why I've given you this handout. So here we have Richard Clark, who is number 30 on chart 1. He becomes number 1 on chart 16. Here he is, he's number 1. So now you can start again following his line and go to the end. But this is actually chart 16. So the previous 15 charts are the people from the top down to him. All right, now we're going to go to what is called a family group sheet. This is the way you keep each family unit as a unit. So I've started out with the husband's name, who's H. Fred Dyer, and his wife is Marjorie Coulter. You saw that on the first, the pedigree chart. You can fill in things like the birth, the christening date, the marriage, death, burial date, and when and where, and any additional information you want. And you do the same for the mother, the wife. Down here is where you're starting to keep families separate. This is the listing of their children. So number 1, the oldest, was Janice, and there's her birth and death dates. This has a spot in here to put the spouse's name. Number 2 in that family was Marjorie, with her birth and death dates, and then Shirley and Carol, each of these listing the husbands. If you have a couple who one of them may have remarried, you start a whole new sheet because you have another family unit. So if Marjorie had remarried and had more children, she would have another sheet with a different husband and those children listed. That way you keep your units all separate and contained that way. Timelines. Timeline is a listing of the events of an ancestor's life, and sometimes you can include local and national events that might have affected the ancestor. And you put in things like birth and death and marriage dates, education, military service, anything you want, but it kind of fleshes out the ancestor. So in this case, I have a marriage date for a couple and a birth date for their child. And then I'm following the child here, so her marriage and a divorce and a marriage and things that she has done throughout her life. That's very good to kind of give some flesh, some meaning to the person's life. Also in your packet is a resource checklist with the name of the person, birth date. This is where you can keep track of what you've done, and you don't go back and do it a second time. There's a checklist here of places to look, give you some ideas of things you can look for and places to look for them. And again, another list on just where to look to find information on your ancestor. That's the end of the slideshow. Also included in your packet is a page of sources for where you can access free templates. So what I've given you, you can certainly photocopy and use over and over again, but you can also go to some of these sites and pick up some free stuff, and free is always good. You will find that there's probably a chart for anything you choose to record, and there are a lot of them out there. So good luck with filling out your forms and charts. I'm happy you popped in to watch this, and contact us if you need any further help. Thank you.